Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Miller, and I serve as the Senior Executive Director of Content and Implementation here at Curriculum Associates. The title of this webinar is We Play All, Having an Equity Mindset. So thank you so much for what you're doing to meet the needs of students. And in your efforts, I would encourage you to grab a book by Todd Rose called The End of Average. Also, feel free to Google his TED Talk. And in that TED Talk, he describes a situation that happened in the 1940s with our aerial warfare. We seem to be losing lots of battles, and our government wanted to understand why. So they did a real extensive study to see if it was pilot error, maybe it was our military strategists. They just wanted to know why we were suffering so many defeats. And after years of research, it came down actually to the cockpit. And so we spent the next few years actually redesigning the cockpits of all of our fighter jets. And the way that they went about it was to simply take the average of all the pilots. So they interviewed all the pilots and they began to do measurements of height and weight, torso and thighs and neck and so forth. And they created the old-fashioned bell curve just to find the trends, the average of all of these dimensions, and then created a cockpit based upon those 10 dimensions. And when they were finished, they brought in all of the pilots. Do you know how many pilots actually fit perfectly in the average of all 10 of those subgroups? The answer was zero. That what our military discovered in the 1940s was that there was no such thing as an average pilot. And so the end of average is actually just informing us that we need to think about how we look at students more individually. I just simply want us to understand that there is no such thing as an average student, that every student comes to us with a jagged splintering of skills, where they may be above grade level in certain areas, below grade level in the other, meeting the needs of Tier 1 instruction somewhere in the middle. And what our goal should be as educators is to understand who our students are, to see them where they are, and then to move in a way that meets them and makes them feel comfortable with where they are in academia. I want to stop here for a moment and show you a quick video from my hometown about a young boy and his teacher who saw a need and then provided something to make him feel comfortable.
Fifth grader in Rocky Mount recently had to start wearing glasses to school, and he hated it.
He thought the glasses made him look too different from the rest of the class, so his teacher decided to make the rest of the class look like him. Brian Mims now with the students who see eye to eye when it comes to helping a classmate.
Let's take a look on at Luke 23.
Look at life through the lens of an 11-year-old.
Did I tell you this lesson was going to be an easy lesson?
It's that bridge between childhood and adolescence when your looks become magnified. And Kai Miller, who has autism, already felt looked upon as different.
Kai also has social or selective mutism, so he doesn't like to talk in social situations.
That's his mom, Blair Miller, who adopted Kai from China when he was 18 months old. He's now in 5th grade here at Faith Christian School in Rocky Mount. Those Ray-Bans of his are new.
He didn't like his glasses, huh?
He did not like his glasses. He never wanted to wear them to school. I told him he looked very handsome in his glasses, and he said, "No, I don't."
He thought that they made him look ugly, basically, is what he said.
Ugly? His teacher, Dawn Brantley, thought if only he could see the lie in that word.
It became a burden to me because I knew that he really needed them. So I decided to just get glasses for everybody.
Everybody in the class, herself included.
Like now, I think I might need to clean them here.
She spotted some plastic black-rimmed glasses online and ordered them. Every day for going on 2 weeks now, everybody has worn them to class.
Actually, I thought it was going to be just for one day, but they have continued. Never asked a question.
I decided to ask a question of Kai. What does he make of his glasses now? Remember, he's very shy.
I say I like them now.
You like your glasses?
I like them now, he says. And what does he make of this spectacle of his classmates all in spectacles?
They make me feel loved.
Make you feel loved?
Did you catch that? They make me feel loved. Classmates say that's the whole focus.
They're loving Kai and they like him and they want him to stay here and make more friends.
I thought it was good to make him feel comfortable in like his own skin and like for his glasses, and I thought it was a good idea to do it.
It is absolutely amazing. They encourage Kai every day.
We here at WRAL encourage you too, Kai. Look at all of my coworkers sporting specs. May you see clearly now how cool you really are.
I absolutely adore that video. I smile every single time I watch it, probably because the young boy is my son. So Kai, yes, is adopted from China. He is autistic. He is now in 7th grade. He still counts on his fingers. He doesn't know his multiplication facts. And yet he's still trying to understand proportional relationships in his 7th grade math classroom. So what I want us to understand is when we talk about having a equity mindset, that we play all, meaning that we encourage our efforts towards all children, that we need to really understand who they are, and the best way to understand who our students are beyond what we observe as educators is data. And I would encourage you over the next few minutes to kind of really ask yourself, am I using data to truly know who my students are? If we're truly to understand the jagged profiles of all of our students, then we need to make use of an adaptive diagnostic in our schools. And particularly when I think about an adaptive diagnostic where the questions move up or down based upon the answers that students give, meaning that the questions get harder every time they get one right, they get a little bit easier every time one student gets one wrong. And we want to kind of let it level out to understand where our students truly are on a K-12 spectrum. Meaning that if a 7th grader is struggling with proportional relationships, I need to know if it's because they have a deficiency in 4th grade level skills around recognizing fractions on the number line. I also need to know that a 4th grade student who is struggling with comprehension, it may be because of foundational skills with issues with phonics or phonological awareness or sight words. So an adaptive diagnostic allows us to see students across a K-12 spectrum. But that diagnostic also needs to have some things that go on under the hood and behind the scenes. And one of the things you should look for in an adaptive diagnostic is something called content mapping. Content mapping is where you bring in hundreds of educators and you look at all of the reading and math standards K-12, and you all come to an agreement on what does it mean to have an early, mid, or late understanding of a particular piece of content. So for instance, let's take 2-digit addition. An early understanding of 2-digit addition may be understanding place value, being able to count by ones and count by tens, maybe even to make a 10. That's an early foundation of success with adding 2-digit numbers. Kind of a mid understanding would then being able to apply that to both vertical and horizontal representations, maybe skip counting on a number line using a hundredths chart based 10 blocks. But then having a late understanding means that I can take all of those representations and apply it to higher Bloom's taxonomy, right? Depth of knowledge 1, 2, and 3 level questions. So content mapping is when we come to an agreement of what early, mid, and late means for every single standard K-12 reading and math, and then pass out 9,000 diagnostic questions just to ensure that we understand that a student is answering a question at an early level, at a mid level, or at a late level. Now, if you do that content mapping behind the scenes, it means that when we report out information about students, we can be very specific to who they are. So as you look at this report, notice that we're not just comparing our students to other students, where we're in the 83rd percentile or the 50th percentile or the 21st percentile. But in iReady, that adaptive diagnostic reports out by placement level, where I see things like mid 4 or early 3. I see a breakdown of that score in domains such as phonological awareness, phonics, high frequency words, vocabulary, informational text, comprehension of literary text. In math, numbers and operations, algebraic thinking, geometry, statistics, data, all of those things that we need to understand where our students are, that's where content mapping is so critical, because it allows us to truly know who our students are. And then to be able to go a little bit further and understand where they are when it comes to Lexile ranges and quantiles, understanding where they are with their normative ranking compared to other students, even great growth goals. But the real way that you meet the needs of students is to go beyond the data. The data just tells us who the student is, but tying it automatically to resources is a way that makes that efficient for teachers, and it truly provides an equity tool in your classrooms. So notice from this report that I can use a drop-down menu and go from the diagnostic results to instructional grouping, and that iReady will automatically create up to 5 different groups looking at their scores in the domains, and that each individual group is then hyperlinked to an instructional report. So if I click on that instructional report, here's what I want us to understand. In this case, I'm looking at a 4th grade classroom, and I have many students who are still struggling with decoding multisyllabic words. That's a 1st grade level skill in a lot of cases. So what do I do as a 4th grade teacher? Well, a lot of times I don't have foundational skill resources in my classroom, so I'm scurrying and looking things, going to the book closet, I'm trying to find a resource. But let's see some specificity found in the iReady reports. Number 1, look at it specifically what it says. That in order to meet the needs of these students, we need to teach multiple strategies around decoding multisyllabic words. And in addition to the strategies, it would be nice to have a word list for students to practice. Now, rather than looking for those resources or figuring out what those strategies are, to the right of the report are automated lesson plans included in iReady. That with a click of a button, I get a PDF that gives me what? 3 different strategies to work with decoding multisyllabic words. Looking at base words, finding patterns, using syllables. And then when I need that word list, that's also included. So when I'm thinking about meeting the needs of students at maybe within small group instruction, allow the data from iReady, that adaptive diagnostic, to pinpoint the commonalities that students may have, and then deliver an instructional strategy with a resource. That's your equity tool in your classroom. But it's beyond just small group instruction. It's really looking at the personalized instruction that students may need as well. So I'm going to actually click on an individual student. And when I look at this individual student, I want you to notice that this student has a bar graph that shows them in relationship to Tier 1 instruction. We would love students to be in that green shaded region, meaning that they are ready for grade level instruction. And in this case, this student is a little bit behind. The question I have, though, is what is considered to be good growth this year? Should I get them in the shaded region, to the top of the shaded region? Where do they need to be? So notice in iReady, we indicate a proficiency target, which represents solid understanding of grade level content to be able to move from 2nd grade to 3rd grade, from 7th grade to 8th grade. And we also give every single student a typical growth target. Now, iReady, just so you know, is used by over 9 million students in the country. That's over 35% of all children K-8 in America. So with all of that data, we're actually able to look for historical results, finding other students who scored the exact same as you, and then determining what then would be a typical or average growth for the year. So in this case, we would actually mark that with a solid line. And what I want to indicate to you as you're trying to discover different ways of providing equity tools in your schools is to realize that that typical growth goal is a good year. We should celebrate it, but it's not accelerating students enough to get them where they need to be. So in iReady, we also give every child, whether they're below grade level, on grade level, or academically gifted, we give every child a stretch growth goal as well. It's where we look through that historical data and we find all the students who close the achievement gap. And for some students, that's going to be a 1-year stretch growth goal. For some students, it may be 2. And then for people like my son, who might be 3 or 4 years behind, it's a 3-year growth goal. But here's the kicker. That's an equity tool because it's showing all parents, all students, all stakeholders that you have a vehicle, you have a means of closing the gap. And in that case, it's called stretch growth. But beyond the stretch growth goal, our questions really then become, well, once I know who this student is, the likelihood of them being proficient, and what is a good or a great growth year, how do we move the needle? Do you tie instructional resources like you did in small groups? And the answer is yes. As I kind of zoom out and allow you to see the complete report, notice beside the graph that you'll see the placement score of the student, right? Broken down by all the domains. And then you see another column that says can-dos and next steps. This is the zone of proximal development for every single child. That with a simple click, I get a very specific set of skills, almost like your academic goals for the year, tied to every single individual student. So every student gets individualized growth goals. Every student gets typical, stretch, and a means of getting them to achieve those goals. And one of the ways that you can achieve that is not only through print, but through digital instruction. So part of iReady is also personalized learning. And as you look at the screen, you'll see that there are two different pathways. A pathway called Mara's path, which was created by the Diagnostic. It's specific to the data that whatever a child needs, K through 8, they automatically receive that online instruction. But we never devalue the teacher, that the observations that you have and see around your students, that you should be able to create a pathway of instruction as well. So iReady allows for both. And then students with a click of a button on their iPad and their Chromebook, on their desktop, their laptop at home, they automatically receive instruction. And that instruction needs to be very responsive to the needs of students. It just can't be an arbitrary lesson. It can't be test prep. It can't just be a tutorial without a progress monitoring quiz. It has to encompass everything. So some things that I'll show you in iReady in a moment includes things like responsive instruction, where at certain times where students are maybe practicing a math skill or maybe doing a phonics activity, that if they're showing success with that skill, why don't we progress them quicker through the content, not allowing them just to kind of set and get, but accelerating them through the lessons in a way that gets them to where they need to be. That while they're taking these online lessons, that we're providing supports that they may need, such as gradual unlocking of text, a slow down timer, citing text-based evidence to answer questions, like having all of those things like audio support, all of that is important, and all of those are found within the iReady lessons. So I'm going to stop for a moment and actually show you some clips from both math and reading. And that's what I want you to pay attention to. Pay attention to the engagement factor that students encounter, but also look for the supports. Look where the lesson stops and instructs. Look where the students are receiving that just-in-time instruction to best meet them where they are.
The letter H. A picture is hiding behind the letters. Tap every H to see the picture. K. Look for the letter H. 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 F. Look for the letter H. 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 H.
Happy Hippo hula hoops. Ready to find more letters.
Choose a combination of balloons and weights to send the ship through the hoop.
again. Are you ready to practice some more math skills?
We'll unlock different doors on our quest to the quiz.
Let's go!
Get ready for more practice adding numbers that have both tens and ones.
Get ready!
Use this to unlock the door.
Let's find 27 plus 46. We can use cubers to help. These show 27. These show 46. Tap the tens magnet to move the tens together. Tap the ones magnet to move the ones together. Let's see if we can make a 10. Tap the ones to move them into the 10 frame. There are 10 ones in the 10 frame. Tap the 10 frame to make a 10. Now you're ready to add. What is 27 plus 46? Use the number pad to show the total. Think about how many tens and ones there are in all. Try again. Try counting by tens and then by ones. Let's do this together. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 71, 72, 73. Use the number pad to show 73. 27 plus 46 equals 73.
Night in the Wax Museum by Melissa Sarno. What is Kayla like? How does the author describe Kayla? Tap the sentence with the word shy. Kayla is incredibly shy. She is uncomfortable around other people.
I hope you see the power of individualized, personalized learning. That if you are looking to meet the needs of all of your students, the students who have academic cavities, the students who are accelerating, the students who need just-in-time support at grade level instruction, that personalized learning needs to be driven by data, both by the teacher and what the adaptive diagnostic tells us about our students. So I'll encourage you one last time with a story. As you're thinking about what you're doing in your schools to meet the needs of all children, as you're promoting your equity initiatives in your buildings, I want to remind you of a story about Wally Triplett. Wally Triplett was a young man who grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia. And growing up, he was actually an outstanding football player. So much that newspaper articles went all over the country about this young man. This was obviously pre-cell phones and pre-ESPN. So in his senior year, he actually received a letter from the University of Miami offering him a full scholarship to come to Miami to play football. But there was one small, actually big problem. Wally Triplett was African American, and the University of Miami at the time was a segregated university. So they actually rescinded his scholarship, and Wally Triplett had to find another place to go play football, and he found himself at Penn State University. In his second year, he had a really good year, and the third year, that the schedule comes out, and there was a trip that was to be made at the end of the season to Miami to play the Hurricanes. And believe it or not, a letter was received at Penn State University asking that they would leave their African American athletes at home because Miami was a segregated university. The captain of the football team, actually a Caucasian young man, had a team meeting. And basically what came out of that team meeting was, Coach, we play all of our players or we play none. And they took a vote and they forfeited the last game of the season. So we fast forward a few months and it's Wally Triplett's senior year. And Penn State is phenomenal. They are undefeated and they get an invitation to go to the Cotton Bowl to play Southern Methodist University. And both teams are undefeated, so playing for a national championship. Dallas is a segregated city, and they send a letter to Penn State University asking would they please leave their African American athletes at home. So once again, this school has a decision to make. Do we go and compete for a national championship, or do we step away? They take a vote, and the vote again is, Coach, we play all or none. And they agree to forfeit the Cotton Bowl. But luckily, a nearby naval base offers them a place to stay. So they travel to the outskirts of Dallas. They participate in the Cotton Bowl. They're behind in the fourth quarter. They score a touchdown at the last minute of the game, and the touchdown was caught by Wally Triplett. Wally Triplett goes on that summer and becomes the first African-American student ever drafted into the National Football League. Now, why do I tell you that story? Because if you know anything about Penn State University, this idea of we play all or none actually becomes the battle cry, the chant that they have at every game, where half of the crowd says, we are, and the other half says, Penn State. We play all or none. If you want to have an equity mindset going forward, I encourage you to adopt the Penn State motto. We are Penn State. We play all or none. Thank you for all that you do to meet the needs of all of your students.